you know, when you look at something like Vertigo, she has to become these different people.
Yeah.
And they use costume design to create that transformation.
Absolutely.
So I think, like, for me, the love affair with clothes was film.
I'm Elijah Wood.
And I'm Daniel Noah.
Kate and Laura Mulleavy are creators of the fashion line Rodarte. I met them many years ago through our mutual friend, photographer and filmmaker, Autumn DeWilde. We sat down with them at their studio in downtown LA, where they store the entire history of not only all of their creations, but also an extraordinary collection of art books, showcasing their wide-ranging influences from fine art to vintage horror magazines.
In addition to their well-known work in fashion, they designed the ballerina costumes for Darren Aronofsky's film Black Swan, and the costumes for a production of Don Giovanni with set design by Frank Gehry. And as if that's not enough, they recently wrote and directed a beautiful genre film called Woodshock.
But interestingly, the thread that ties it all together is their interest in horror and their particular fascination with the films of Alfred Hitchcock.
And as always, remember, if you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen so you never miss an episode.
This is Visitations
With Elijah Wood
and Daniel Noah. And now, Kate and Laura Mulleavy.
Oh, hi. This is Elijah and Daniel asking for the gate, but it's already open, so we'll be... no, wait, now it's closed.
Still be open.
It's
actually closing.
It's closing right now.
I'll open it right now then. Yep,
Thank
you guys
you.
just come through the door in the gate and then ring the doorbell and I'll let you in the front door.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We never answer these doors.
Hello?
Hi.
How are you?
I'm so nervous about answering your door.
Hi,
I was like, I don't know how to answer the door.
good.
Hi.
This is so funny. Look what's in here. I always send this picture to you.
Oh my God, yeah. What?
He like bought something from us like
$147.
100 years ago, and my dad was like, wait, you know who
can't
this
cash
is,
this
right?
check.
He's like, he never cashes checks.
No way.
It's memorabilia. And I was like, little did I know he would become a good friend of ours.
What's the year?
I was sent this picture 2010.
2010, not even that long ago.
9 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not so cute that he did that. He's like, you guys can't cash
147.
this. I was like, oh.
Wow.
Hey,
I know,
now
now
you
we have, I'm sure there's other friends that are like, I wish they didn't cash our checks. So like, I don't think this is not fun stuff. Okay, so,
shoes. We have a
this is just the
lot of
whole
shoes.
archive. This
An
is like
archive?
12 years of collection.
Like, this is fun.
That's all here.
What? This is the Black Swan stuff?
Yeah.
So we have,
Should we take down, do you want to take down the crown?
if you can grab that box, I'll open it up. What's this?
You can see how.
Oh yeah, here. Oh, like this is the demon character. Like because they have all the different characters.
I don't know if you
in Black
remember
Swan.
in the movie, but like,
Like,
there's like the
the male-
demon.
Yeah.
male
So we
dancers?
did all of that. So it's all in there, and like the guy's clothes.
I want to talk to you guys about working on this. It's fascinating.
It's really, well, we're gonna look at something that will tell you a lot about our, if we open this crown, it'll
You want to sit
explain.
down?
It explains a lot about, like, I think who we are, is because when we found out after we did it, to make a long story short, we were like, well, she's gotta be like, kind of, the Swan Lake has to be like in the world of Black Swans. We have to create something that's different, but still, you know, linked to, I think, classically what you would associate with Swan Lake. So
Yeah.
it wasn't when we were doing it that our intention wasn't to go into it and create something that was so different from like a Swan Lake you understood.
Yeah.
Hence we did things like the pancake tutu that's kind of like the classical shape.
Yeah.
But it needed to feel demented and feel like the world of this movie. So when we were making the crown, our initial thought was, well, she has to have this metal crown, and we really have to make it from metal. And there only can be one that we'll make because we're gonna So they burned the copper, or we did, to make shards, and copper's light, because basically a ballerina doing all this technical stuff can't have a heavy crown. And we only made one, which is like a big no-no, because as you know, you need to have like 5,000.
Yeah. Oh my
and
God.
Laura and I were like, no, this is only commune
You
one
can
off.
only make one, isn't it
Wow.
gorgeous?
Because nowadays they would just computer print a fake version
Sure.
of this. But when we did it, we were like, we would
gotta be
never
real.
do that. It's
Yeah,
gotta be
you
real.
Wow.
And it actually was, just so you know, this seems fairly light, but literally a few of like the technical advisors were like, in the beginning, this is too heavy. Because they are doing a lot of physical, like,
For the practicality of
yeah,
dancing.
and then
moving.
all of a sudden we were just, you know, we had to take that stance. Well, no, that's a good thing. It'll be more.
And open it.
And we eventually got through it and it was fine.
So which one?
Yeah.
Which one is that?
This is the comb that goes on the back of the head.
Oh wow.
Wow, that's
So it was always this crown. And when
And there was
was
only one.
Only one, but there were multiple
Terrifying.
tutus. So like the black swan, there's like, you know, 3 or 4 of those. Same with the white swan, because one was like for stunt rigged, and you know,
So
like one of our tutus has a giant hole in it for where they did the
blood
rigging
stunt.
right.
for the blood squirting.
Amazing.
But this we were just like, you know, for us, I just remember even saying, I think we said to Darren at one point, and I'm sure no one will remember this but us, but we were like, it has to be one. Like, we can't just, because also it's true, if we
It's a
hand
unique
created a
object,
second
yeah.
one, it won't look the same.
Yeah.
It won't look the same.
Because
No,
if you're burning metal, you can't control it. So, I mean, I guess to an eye, like if it was from a distance view, you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But one of the key questions we had for him when we started working on it was, for example, when you go to a ballet and you watch it from a
Ken boxing it up.
okay, from a distant, if you have a distant view of it,
Yeah.
everything looks gorgeous. When you put the little, what do you call those? I don't know those
That
things.
Binoculars?
distance view.
But yeah,
binoculars.
binoculars. So if you put those on and you see up close, you see that the makeup's extremely exaggerated. It doesn't look, you know, it looks a lot more physical and kind of like different than a distance view. And I was like, how do you want the audience to still have a distance view even when you're up close with the dancers? Because we knew he was going to be filming a lot up close. And I think the answer was yes, except for clearly what we would rely on is the actor to bring the viewpoint that didn't feel distant. So any of like the pain or the horror, that would come from the actor's performance.
Where did you guys grow up?
50s and 60s.
We grew up in Santa Cruz, or a little town called Aptos, which is right on
A
the
little town called where they shot the Lost Boys.
yeah.
Where they
And
shot
now
us.
that's what, yeah, the Lost Boys was shot. And what's so cool about that is I always say, like, I have a funny story about that, which was years. I mean, I've seen that movie a million times, obviously.
So was that shooting while you guys
Yeah,
were
when
living
we were
there?
living there, yeah.
Holy fuck, right? Of course it would have been.
Yeah.
So this
Do you
is what's
remember
so,
that? Do you
well,
remember a
what I
film crew being in
remember
town?
is
No.
I don't remember like filmmaking happening in town. But what I remember is the exact way when you watch the opening in that film and you see all the different kids on the boardwalk, and it's like, you know, the hippie, the surfer, like the, you know,
punk
stoner, the
kids.
punks. I literally
comic
watched that
shop.
like 10 years ago. There was some anniversary that came out, and I was watching the DVD extras, and I was like, I wish you could understand. I was like, this is exactly what Santa Cruz looked like.
Wow.
And I was like, and it's why, you know, I think it's why I became a designer. I was interested in aesthetics because of what I was seeing around me. And then we hit right there in the documentary, I mean, the movie. He's like, actually, all the footage is document. At the very beginning, he's like, that's all documentary footage. Like, we went to the boardwalk and we just shot the kids we saw.
Holy
and I was
shit.
like, okay, that's why.
When I was a child and we were introduced to Alien, which was the big movie of our family, my dad just was like, I love Alien. And he's like, look at this production design, the quality. And then he would then have the standard of, well, now we're going to watch the movie that has all this blue light. And that's how they mask how bad their production design is.
Wait, sorry. What
And
does
I
your
thought-
father do for a living?
He was a mycologist, so he studied mushrooms. But he liked movies like, his favorite movie was like Das Boot and Alien.
Yeah.
But he had a real affinity for
Yeah, I
horror
guess he just
films.
he must have just known
Genre.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Alien's one of those ones where it's like, I mean, I even, you know, when I was in
Alien's
school, I got to
incredible.
study in art history, one of the only films, because it was very like, at Berkeley, they have very like, if you're going to study film at the time I was there, it was very classic, kind of like you study film in the film department. You're going to study art history, this is fine art. Like they were even questioning if we could, like we would study photography and it would be like, well, you know, the question still back then was, can this be in the art department? And it was like, well, yeah, obviously it should be. But you know, there was a lot of like, and that maybe speaks to what we're talking about, staying in your lane.
Yeah.
But one of the only films I remember that we got to study was Alien. And it's just because it's such a brilliant film on so many levels. But I think too about genre, another thing is that people like to, I was talking to her specifically about a film like Suspiria, the original one. And I was saying, well, what's so great about that is what's so great about genre is when you succeed, you really can secretly make the best art film because, first of all, there's enough,
Absolutely.
you think of it, there's enough fun stuff and scary stuff that happens in Suspiria that you're basically like, I'm on this ride.
Yeah.
But guess what? The movie kind of gets to abandon plot.
Totally.
We're not really so concerned about, you know, the mystery being solved or the fact that something's been repeated 5 times by the same character in one
horror
scene.
is where abstract expressionism is encouraged and embraced in
true.
popular culture like no other medium or
has
genre.
to.
Or
So when
How
it
do you? But it's a
succeeds-
suspension of disbelief. You
Yeah.
can't really make it real. Otherwise, you know, you'd be making just a political film about walking down the street.
Yeah.
Which you could do, and it could be seen as a horror film.
So that's why I feel like when it succeeds, you kind of
Yeah.
have the best of the best, which
Yeah.
is like you kind of still have something that's, you know, fun to watch.
Yeah, it's
that makes
accessible.
you feel strong emotions and yet might be doing something even more than you thought. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm like, you know, of course there's, you know, can be inundated with, you know, I think it's true. It's because, you know, a lot of times people too associate it. You know, people have a real, you know, I don't know what it
People
is.
also don't understand world creation. They you know, sci-fi, the history of sci-fi and fantasy, people are like, well, you know, everyone kind of has an opinion on that. And I always think, well, anyone that can take their mind and build a whole new world is really fascinating. So you have the
Me
amazing
too.
sci-fi writers and just people that contributed so much. It's just a different form of expression. But that does get marginalized in a weird way.
Yeah.
But it's almost sometimes you wonder. It's like it's part of what's fun. Like when we went to that horror convention, it was like part of what was fun about doing it is this feeling like
The fans
we
are
were
fun.
inside of this inside club with other people that got it.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna wait in like 5 hours to learn how to.
Yeah.
This one makeup artist does this like weird thing with blood, and Laura and I were like, you know, there's 5,000 shades of blood. There's like the blood in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which
Yeah.
looks like dried blood. Then there's
we
that
have
wet,
that in
thick
our
blood.
Pantone book.
You know, and we were like
And there's the
obsessing with it
hammer
at the
horror
time.
blood, which is like
Yeah.
super bright
Yeah,
red.
exactly. Bright,
Yeah.
that really bright red.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the kind of stuff that we're like so passionate about. It kind of made you feel like, oh, you found like other people that are like you about this.
Yeah.
And
Look.
it's not just, you know,
This is our
kinda sometimes the
only
fun
mark
part.
we're allowed to make in our $1,000 Pantone book is our blood marks.
oh yeah.
Oh,
It's like 4 shades of red, which are probably in here. Like
wow.
dry blood. You know, when we were doing our Japanese horror collection, the
Slash
ballet
Suspiria.
Suspiria / ballet collection. That's what,
Where we
and that's why
And we hand dyed all the
those tools.
Yeah.
these tulle dresses that like are silk, which I wouldn't do now, but when you try to do that, the red runs pink. And so like the big technical challenge for months working on those pieces was keeping the white tulle white,
And
the
the
red
red
red,
red.
just like when you watch Suspiria and the first, you know, that imagery is so.
Yeah.
And we eventually got there, and I remember the person we worked with, which was a brilliant person at doing dyeing, you know, dyeing specialty garments, textile things. She said, well, don't forget red has one of the biggest egos out of all color. And I was like, oh, interesting. And it's like, you know, I love thinking of like the colors that you associate with horror and genre too, like red, that neon green,
Oh, yeah.
acid green. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
interesting. There's also a real color palette. Like, what other genre you're like, there's a color palette I associate with drama.
Yeah.
It's like,
There
no.
isn't.
Yeah.
No.
Muted
I
colors.
really do. Yellow,
Lavender.
you know, red.
Yeah.
Like, you associate that. That's interesting to me, too. It tells you that there's
Well, it's a
visual.
It's an extremely
a
visual medium.
It has to
one of the
use all
things
Which is maybe why it's marginalized too, because I do have to say this, I experienced this myself. People are like, that's too visual. And I'm like, since when is that bad for filmmaking? And in fact,
what?
every great filmmaker, you know, from Scorsese to, they say, oh, these movies are incredible to look at. Yet if sometimes people use that against you. So And I don't understand. I think it's why people want to watch films is that it's visually engaging and it brings you into a world that you didn't make up in your own head.
Yeah.
It's bizarre when filmmakers are criticized for indulgence in visual aesthetics.
You did that too well.
Yeah, it's
How
bizarre.
dare you.
It's bizarre, and it's like I don't know. It's often in lieu of there being enough plot or something that people attack filmmakers for doing that, but. Is that not why we go to a Refn film? We go to a Refn film because we want to see what he does visually, not to follow the fucking plot.
Well, also, Panos director Mandy
and ad nauseum. I mean, the same with Argento and so on and so forth. We go to those movies because of the visual aspect of it.
Panos is this phrase, the tyranny of narrative.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's true. I mean, why is film so obsessed with it when it's a medium that essentially, at its best, should be able to escape it?
So you guys were exposed by your dad to horror stuff pretty early,
Well, I
right?
also think where it's where I would say, and we might have a
Not deep
different.
horror, just the surface.
I actually think two things kind of, I mean, just thinking of like childhood that come to my mind. I think personally where we grew up is very much a landscape of extremes. I mean, we grew up in Santa Cruz, like we grew up literally on the edge of an old growth national forest with really large redwoods. And I think as a kid, we were surrounded by, my father is a mycologist, studied things that you don't necessarily see with the human eye. So a lot of my dad's passion are things that you have to see under a microscope. And I feel like, so there's two things. There's like things that are like unseeable and small. So something about the idea of, we were talking about paranormal, all those things, like that's kind of like the unseen. It's not the mysteries of the universe that we're trying to understand. Like I think on some abstract level that was a present, not that he was telling us things about that, but it's present in someone that studies, mycology, like in a sense. And then these very large organisms, which at times are the most beautiful, transcendent, these trees that you can be around that are sometimes, I think taller than the Statue of Liberty. Yeah. I always get it wrong, but they're so.
No, I think that's definitely true.
Yeah, when they're that tall, it's like you can feel the most, like, without even being. Not, and I don't mean it in a religious way, but there's some kind of soulful, spiritual connection.
Without question, yeah.
And then there's times where you're just like, I feel like the smallest person in the world. And it's not that it's scary, but there's something about the fear of existence in a way. It's like a pretty heavy thing. And I think as kids growing up, and we're both very sensitive visually. So I think growing up in that landscape and then being exposed to film, just oddly from our dad.
But I think my mom made us watch
that's what I was gonna
Hitchcock
say.
when we were young. So like The Birds, Vertigo.
Vertigo with the tree.
Yeah,
with the
and we
redwood
recognize
tree.
the places in Vertigo.
We would go to the San Juan Bautista where they have the bell tower scene.
Yeah.
And we would go there as children
where we
because
got
it
our
was like
cat.
a local. It's where we got
That's
one
my
of our
favorite
cats.
film. of
Yeah.
all
Me too.
time.
And you know what?
Is that your favorite film?
I actually have to
of
say it's one of my real favorites, and one of the things that I think about that film and seeing it. My mom literally at a young age said to us, well, we didn't like going to school really, and she's like, we're going to you guys don't have to go to school for the week. We're going to watch all these Hitchcock films.
Oh my God.
And it was so important because I remember literally when we got to Vertigo, and I remember I recognized like that's that mission we got our cat from. We go to San Juan Bautista, which is very close to where we grew up, and then all of a sudden something happened to me, which was film imagination conflated with real life. All of a sudden, and I think it's a hazard to anyone that loves film that lives in LA that recognizes where things are shot, because all of a sudden it's like these real life places became as real, the imaginary version of it became as real as the real life version. And I think somehow all of those things, I don't know if that all led necessarily to horror as a genre that we love and are passionate about, but those were the building blocks for being really interested in film. I think being really interested in what a world creation can make you feel. Like why would something like these trees make you feel a certain way?
Well, I think that they just the most extreme of the film genres. You get to play the most with all of the senses. There's no restraint in any of it most of the time, and you really get to go for it. And it's so exciting to be in something very immersive like that.
Yeah.
Were you fearful kids?
I was so scared of things when I was young. I was scared that there was things under my bed and that the ground would eat you if you went to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and then so I didn't.
But she also was very
thought we had
existential.
a-
She would tell me, like, I was up all night. Later on, she would say, like,
yeah.
listen to this. I was like, what kind of child were you? I mean, we're only 18 months apart, and I was shocked. She's like, I would be up all night thinking, what do you think?
Well, I just would imagine sitting in the universe and then watching the Earth spin after I died, and then I was like,
She's like, it just
it's
keeps
gonna
going
go
on and on. And
I
I
would
was
say
like-
the word forever in my
That
mind.
used to happen to me too.
The
Okay, well,
world's
see,
gonna go on
you're meant to
forever
know each
and
other. I was
forever
like,
and
what?
And it scared me so much.
so much.
I didn't know anyone else thought this. Well, I never knew.
I had
So
the,
now this is
I had
why-
the same
It's
thing. The
scary.
notion of dying and then the infinity.
Infinity,
Yeah.
after you.
Yeah.
You know, I
How
think-
weird is that, though?
But I also
At what age? Like 9?
No, I
8?
don't even remember. Probably around
Yeah,
that
it's-
age,
Yes.
yeah.
7, 8 is
Yeah.
around.
That's when you have the.
You have this, awareness.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I was scared of my pets getting lost. Simple things. And then and then you would. There's things in the zeitgeist. So I remember Pet Cemetery must have come out at that time period.
Yeah, I did actually.
Which I was way too
around that
scared to
time period.
see.
I just remember being
Way too
really
scared.
fascinated by
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it's just, I think also just the norm.
You associated that with like cool kids. Because we grew up in the Bay Area, so we go to the Monterey Bay all the time. And we always said, oh yeah, they'd sell two types of shirts. One was like covered in otters, and one was with sharks. And Kate and I said, "Oh shoot, we're like the otter kids that want the otter shirts. We were cool kids that wanted shark shirts."
But I also think just like when you're younger, it's like, childhood is like, we had such a magical childhood. Like, amazing parents. Like, we were growing up.
Always
in this-
married?
They say
Yeah,
married,
they're still married, and
Yeah.
they met. I mean, they've been married a long time, and they met like 10 years before they were together for a long time before they got married. And we had growing up in an interesting place where there was a lot happening in terms of like there was nature, but there was also like fun stuff. Like the boardwalk was like, and you got to see things that seemed like exciting. Like it felt like the Lost Boys. Like I didn't ever see any vampires, but the feeling of what that movie captures about where we were growing up is kind of real.
Yeah.
So I think in a sense, like it was kind of like that mixture. And I think also just the normal stuff, the traumas that you have in childhood, which no matter how different our experiences may be, there's still, I think, some connective tissue things that you go through and just, normal life process that I think, maybe makes this kind of films more interesting. I think any type of loss of control, when there's things you think you can control, is definitely spurs a creative personality. The idea that you can't, you as a creator, you want to control everything.
Sure.
I mean, sometimes I'm like, God, I wish I just cared a little bit less about this one detail, this one thing. But you realize ultimately what you're fighting is you don't control anything.
But
You have no
But
control.
also as a designer, I mean, people that
sure.
care about what things look like, it's a genre where it's successful based on if someone's creative enough to make something look new. So Alien was amazing because they worked with an incredible artist to design these creatures that no one could ever invent that.
No.
They had to work with a fine artist to come up with an alien that cool looking.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
now
impressive.
especially too. You're so right. I guess another thing is
Hellraiser, who came up with that idea?
Clive Barker.
yeah.
Oh, we saw him. He was on a panel and he
Yeah,
talked
we
about
went
that
in-
actually. He had a panel at this Fangoria Fest we went to.
Yes.
And what led to fashion design? Because you both were, you went to Berkeley, is that
Yeah,
right?
we both did. And
We loved fashion growing up. We always read Vogue or watched
really?
it. And I remember being fascinated by the idea of creation. You create this idea and anything aesthetic we're just drawn to because it's a kind of a story.
Yeah.
There's extremes.
what
Fashion
is-
can have real extremes.
I could go back to Hitchcock for this one actually.
Yeah.
Because I
The
actually
suits and the birds. Getting
I mean, no, I
ruined.
remember that as a child
Yeah.
thinking that's what I want to do. There's the suit before,
Yeah.
and the
suit
suit after the
after.
birds attack her. And I knew that was I just saw those two things, and I thought, I know it sounds like very simplistic, but to me as a child, it was really saying a lot. And then later on, when you look at something like Vertigo, think of it, that movie cannot even function as a film without amazing costume design.
It's all about design. That
identity.
film's all about design.
It is.
Yeah.
My favorite movies are about design on some level.
But it's also about identity creation and how we transform and create identity. And she has to become these different people.
Yeah.
And they use costume design to create that transformation.
Absolutely.
So I think for me, the love affair with clothes was film, always. As a kid, I think it started seeing movies, being fascinated by clothing and film, and then when I got to my early teenage years, it was kind of a renaissance happening. There was like these amazing Vivienne Westwood shows happening, and like things that I was aware of, and then became very immersed in kind of like Laura was saying, like in this high fashion. And then by the time that we were in school, and just to keep in mind, like the first things I ever drew were fashion drawings. Like I was drawing those at like 5 years old, like young.
Wow.
And
do you have those drawings still?
And, I wish my mom had them. She tells the story, and I remember doing these.
They might be in storage. Like
she might have them.
Stuff.
She was like, they were really elaborate. I must have been really influenced by Bob Mackie and Cher, because they were elaborate. They were kid drawings, but like my mom was like, this is kind of different.
But we
just
watched
like
a lot of older, like old Hollywood cinema when we were young. So
we were kind of raised on
like, oh, what is that world?
But a lot of
like the Wicked Witch.
a lot of
What
kids
amazing design is
in your
that?
position where like you had this love affair, this sort of intoxicating relationship with cinema, but it for you it expressed itself as fashion design. Like how did that? Why not? Why didn't you go for film? Why? I mean, I know you eventually did, but
no,
what?
I know it's a good question, and I actually think at the time when we were, it's actually a really good question, because let's just say this, so that we knew that we had that in like instinctual thing, right, about something, and then we both ended up at Berkeley, which is where my dad, make a long story short, my dad got his doctorate from there.
Oh, wow.
So and I was born in Oakland and raised in Berkeley as a child. And, my dad's big dream was like, the fact that we both went there was like, we've already accomplished my dad's dream. Doesn't matter what we do now. Like we went
Just
to
going
Berkeley.
to Berkeley,
That was that got checked off, and it was like, okay, we're done. We had a free ride after that. It was
That's awesome.
But we went there, and I remember my parents saying, like, just experience what you're going to experience. You don't have to, you're going to fall in line with what you want to do.
You don't have to know right away.
And it was a really important turning point for me, because I started, as an English literature major. I changed art history. Laura went in, was taking all the science, thought maybe she would be pre-med, and I was like,
and I was like, quit that really fast after a year.
And so we took all these different things.
Well, because only to be fair, I think the sciences that I had to take, it's like a weeder. Like Berkeley's a weeder school for.
You got to do the hard classes.
You have to do all these hard classes to do the class you
want
to do. So I couldn't even take biology 1A until I took
see.
Chem 3A, Chem 1A, Physics 1A, Calculus, whatever. And I think it was calculus. I just wasn't good at it. I couldn't do it. So I was like, this is going to ruin my love of science.
But to make a long story short,
and I'm not a quitter. I've just transitioned. Kate was like, let's go to an Elliott Smith concert.
I was like, I have to tell you,
you're going to change your major. I was like, yeah, I'm going to be an English major.
I'm going to take you to the show, and you're going to tell mom that tomorrow, and we're done with this conversation.
Damn.
Because we weren't as...
And the path of your life literally shifted.
Yeah. When we first started designing, we thought going to a magazine that was really cool is to go to the Fangoria office in New York. And there was a woman named Rebecca who we still talk to once in a while. She was working there, and we went through, and I'd never seen an office like this in my life. It was literally stacks of horror memorabilia from the 80s, right? Whoa. Surrounding every little cubicle.
They changed or moved.
They must have.
I think something I remember them saying about something happened in the archive, but
Wait, sorry. So you're
know
aspiring designers.
I know, and we're get us to the horror magazine.
Can you explain that?
Well,
I don't think we knew that much about.
Yeah, we didn't.
At the time that we did
this
that.
Is amazing.
We just, I guess we were just obsessed with horror films. And in the beginning, it's like we would go to New York, and you would have to do stuff in the magazines. And I guess for whatever reason, it's in our mind, there was Vogue, Bazaar, French Vogue, and Fangoria.
Well, what came first? Seeing horror depicted in magazines or watching horror movies? And what was...
Oh, movies, for sure.
And what do you remember? What was the first horror movie that you saw?
Oh, I remember. Because I was so scared of it my whole life, and I still am.
I know mine.
It was called Cat's Eye. It was
a
trilogy.
Mine too.
And
it was an anthology of three stories.
And there was a... We went to a
never seen
kind
it.
of like a summer camp, daytime summer camp in an apple orchard
I
where.
love that they played this for us.
And they had the different events, and they ran a saloon town, which everyone kind of ran their own thing. Like I think we did the saloon.
Yeah.
And then an old western
Really?
town. Yeah. and like the general store. And at nighttime, they showed horror films, but you had to get
how old were
parental
you?
approval to let you see it. And
We were young.
I got so we were
Like under 10?
Young enough where I actually
They showed you
remember-
Cat's Eye when
Yeah.
you were under 10.
I mean,
But
unless
we-
we created this memory, but I'm pretty
only
sure we
watched
both have it.
the part with the troll.
Yeah.
And Drew Barrymore, I think it's her, right?
That
I don't
sounds
remember
right.
who's in it.
There's
Yeah.
one about
I
where
just
James
remember
Woods
this
is trying to
little
quit
troll comes on.
smoking.
Yeah, I didn't see that one. I
Okay.
just saw the
I saw
troll with the
Yeah.
Drew Barrymore like trying to suck the life out of her, and then the cat comes to save her.
See if
Yeah.
it's Drew Barrymore. I don't know if it is. But it
That
might
was
be.
my first, and I was like, I can't watch it.
Oh,
And then
right.
the next big one was Exorcist, because my dad told us it's the scariest movie of all time. If you're gonna have a slumber party, this is what you watch.
Really?
And
You were encouraged.
encouraged when we were.
Drew Barrymore, you're correct. It's
Yeah.
Stephen King.
Oh, it was Stephen King.
Stephen King.
The whole thing. I guess so.
It's Stephen King's Cat's Eye.
Yeah, it's really good, but it really stuck in my mind. And I think then later on, I think like the high school like slumber party type movies I remember were things like Hellraiser
Yeah.
or like Witchboard or like
yeah, dude.
anything that was like those kinds of movies, like Friday the 13th movies,
Yeah.
anything that was like that was like kind of high school. Candyman.
Candyman.
Oh, Candyman was huge.
Candyman's the
That
best.
I remember really
Yeah.
scaring them.
That
That
is-
scared me.
That is
I
a
was
very
like,
adult
and you know what
film.
I was,
It is,
I was
yeah.
really scared. Like that's one of those ones where it's like sometimes I have a very like distant, like I watch it and I'm fine. And I just remember that always was like when I would pass a mirror, I was like, oh, don't think that word. Like, it's weird.
Right,
It
that
actually
one got
like
under your
kind
skin.
of got under my skin. And years later when I understood the movie more,
Yeah.
I was like, well, no wonder.
Yeah.
You know?
Why? What did you understand?
I just understood the score and what was being done in that film.
Didn't Philip Glass do the score for that?
Well, in
fuck.
yeah,
I
and
forgot that.
in any great horror film resonates because it's saying something about the moment you're living in. And I think when I saw that, I was probably young enough where I wouldn't fully absorb something like that.
Sure.
So I just
You feel it
I just
without
felt
understanding
scared,
it.
and
Right.
but I knew that movie was layered in meaning and actually was a really kind of interesting, smart film.
And what were the layers of meaning that you later came to understand?
I just think the film was just dealing with kind of probably socio-political context of not just that time, our time in general, and the way that I think Night of the Living Dead did. Certainly, I mean, the list goes on. Texas Chainsaw Massacre certainly did, because that was a movie where the director was questioning what the government was telling him. He's saying, we can't believe everything. The government's basically lying to us. And this was a movie about his, him feeling kind
paranoia
of
about
right.
that. Yeah.
So, and I guess the most obvious one, the kind of cornerstone and linchpin of all this is the Night of the Living Dead, just because that was a movie that was really exploring kind of the politics of the time and I think,
Race relations.
and the injustice that people were experiencing, and it's kind of hidden in this first zombie film, which was the first zombie film of that kind, because before zombies were reanimated, and Night of the Living Dead so interesting because he was like, no, they just walk around. They're not.
He
they
didn't
just
call them zombies.
Yeah, they just walking around. I always say Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We actually interviewed Tobe Hooper.
Before he passed away.
Yeah,
I
at the
remember
Pacific,
that.
just down the street, the Pacific Dining Car. Yeah, because we called you, probably freaking out, so excited.
When they first showed Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it showed at Cannes, which is crazy.
Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing. And then
know that.
when they did
Well,
the
like a snuff
restoration,
movie at
yeah,
Cannes.
when they did the restoration, they reshowed it a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And then so we interviewed him for Interview Magazine, and look.
Wow.
I forgot I was like, sign my questions.
Oh yeah, because we prepped questions because we were like, we loved his movie so
is
much.
amazing.
and
Are these your
loved him.
notes and
Well, yeah,
stuff
it's like
too?
our questions.
And it was all we audio recorded the interview.
What was the interview for?
Interview Magazine.
Oh, Interview
yeah,
Magazine.
Oh, you
yeah.
guys, this is so special.
And it was so exciting. And then he took a picture in his Rodarte sweatshirt.
When we met him, we said to him, because we were like, we basically, we did that thing where you like.
Oh, wait, look at this note. Burning question. Are the chains in the movie real? Like, what if I was like a burning question to myself? That's so embarrassing.
Well, because we were like, we did one of those things where you record it, because we're like, and we spent hours with him. You know, he would, in fact, we could have spent, he's like, if you don't, if we had to go somewhere, he's like, we could be here all day.
He's a sort of a notoriously tough interview too, right?
Well, you know what I
He
realized?
was so fun. We're like, your movie's an art film. He's like, let's talk.
I feel like that's now the key. I was like, I remember because Laura and I were like, when we were preparing for it, we're like, well, we just need to be honest with him. We don't really think of this movie as a horror film, and we think of it as an art film. And I do think of it as an experimental art film.
Yeah.
I think that
Agree.
I think it's actually a disservice to a movie in a sense, just to sometimes put it in one genre anyway.
Yeah.
But when we opened with that, I was like, we won bonus points. He's like, I've been waiting to have this conversation. Because we were like, it's like Godard. And he's like, okay, like at that point it was like,
Oh my God.
you know what
You're
I mean?
You're
like,
speaking my language.
Yeah. And
Clear my afternoon. Yes.
But you guys brought up something so interesting, though, that we talk about all the time. Because you sit down with Tobe Hooper, who has made one of the most iconic horror movies of all time.
Yeah.
And you speak to him about how you consider that movie an art movie, and you reference Godard.
Yeah.
And he lights up about that. And it speaks to that thing that horror is such a it's a malign genre that people often consider
Ghettoized.
it's ghettoized, and people consider it to be less than and like B cinema.
Right.
When it is high art at its best.
Yeah.
It can
And
be
I
high
actually
art.
think I was just saying this to her the other
And it's
day.
so frustrating that people like him don't get the recognition
Well,
that
I
they
agree,
deserve
100%.
for their contributions.
Well, think of it this way: you can
And
look at
it's
his
a blockbuster.
You can look at his
It made so much money, strangely enough. So it
and you
ticked
can
all
also
these
look
boxes.
and same with George Romero though,
Yeah.
because truly, Night of the Living Dead is another film that I would have viewed as an amazing art film.
100%. Yeah.
And I have to say, like, and that film is so, and they're both Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and maybe even more so with Night of the Living Dead in a sense. They're both so. They're so important and relevant. I maybe equally, but one thing that comes to mind about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, at least for me, is that when you look at what his contemporaries were making, and at that time he had such brilliant filmmaking happening, whether it's like Scorsese or Coppola and Lucas. I mean, this was like one of the golden eras of filmmaking in the United States. And yet, something like this movie is so marginalized when you think about it, it's the movie that opened the door for so much of how we even experience film today.
Sure.
Not just in the horror genre, outside of it.
Sure.
It's the first time you saw something shot that way. I mean, he used camera, he used cinematography in a way that makes you so uncomfortable. You feel like you're like in their kind of, how would you say this? Like you're so in the space of these characters. It was just something that was so different, and it feels so real.
Well, what about Stanley Kubrick said that he made
The Shining because of this movie.
Of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He's like,
know
I
that.
need to do something like this.
Wow.
Amazing.
But I think because it's been put in the horror genre, it's like you said, it gets then put like, well, this isn't as like serious as a film,
Right.
or it's. But when you really think about it, and when I think about movies that are speaking about, I think, really, like I was saying, like, questioning what you're told, not just being someone that goes along with everything, and all those kinds of things that are kind of issues that movie's dealing with, especially when you think about the time period, and I think who he was as a director. I mean, it's fascinating that it would be pigeonholed that way, because essentially it's the complete opposite.
So we have one question we ask everybody on the show. What scares you?
Oh. I think my answer is so easy. It's just death in general. I'm sorry. I'm one of those people that's like, well, I just don't like,
Your
I
own
love
death or the death of others?
I actually think it depends on the mood I'm in. If I'm feeling a little sad, it might be like, well, what would I do if this person wasn't around? And then I just start thinking like, oh, well, what's the, it just feels like I don't even know how to kind of compute that. And then sometimes I just get like, well, what happens? Like, let's say you're lucky enough to live to really old, and then you're like all alone, or like, what happens after you die? Like these questions for me, like, And that's probably like, let's face it, like all genres dealing with that on some primal level.
So we always
So it's the
talk about
unifying
this.
factor.
It's all horror is about loss.
And maybe
Yeah.
it's the maybe it's the only place I can really live out that without having to think about it in a serious way. I can actually have fun with it and turn the switch sometimes. But for me, that's the most realistic answer. I mean, I'm clearly scared all the time of, especially when you have to put yourself out there, I get nervous about like, oh, will people like this? Like, you have those feelings, but that seems small in comparison to when I start thinking like about other things like that.
Yeah.
And you?
I agree. I think I wouldn't. There's nothing you can't be more scared of something else. I don't have like one of those weird fears like arachnophobia or something. But I am scared of heights.
I do have one.
I do have that.
I would say one time we did something which I wouldn't recommend to anyone. We had been in Las Vegas for 3 days of like
After New Year's Eve.
3 days is too long.
Yeah, 3 days. Of Las Vegas. It was a New Year's Eve.
That scares me.
Yeah,
3
it was
days.
a
in
New-
Las
30,
Vegas.
36
It
hours.
was New Year's morning.
Yeah,
We drove to the Hoover Dam.
But we
And then we
Hoover
looked
Dam's
over the
amazing.
edge, and that is like the worst feeling of vertigo, especially after New Year's Eve.
Oh no! I remember thinking like I don't feel so good.
You're a
I
little
was
raw
like,
from
this
New
is
Year's Eve.
the worst idea ever. Like
Yeah.
you don't go to Las Vegas, spend New Year's Eve up all night, and then wake up to be like, we gotta get and look over the edge.
Oh.
of the
Who did
Hoover.
That's me.
No, that was like
I'm with you. I have the worst vertigo. I mean, it's off the
I have
charts.
it.
I can't look out a window. I can't.
don't know.
Like,
I feel like I don't know what it is. Like I don't know how other people experience it, but when I look over an edge or something's too tall, I feel my body
Me too.
falling.
Same. That's
So
what it
I
is.
feel
Yeah.
the gravitational pull saying, Laura, come over here. And I'm like, why is my subconscious telling me to jump off this ledge is what you feel
That's
is happening.
exactly. I've never heard it described that
And I
perfectly.
run for that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, get away.
Yeah.
I feel like
It's like
you feel-
something's trying to pull you
and
over,
I think
yeah.
it's that fear that it's just a split second that
Yeah.
changes you being up high to down low.
I have noticed that I do like to intensify my fears, though. Sometimes, like, so if I'm like really, like, right before a show, for example, I'm only watching these mountain climbing documentaries. So I just sit in my room and I'm like, oh my God, I don't understand this. And I totally have moments of total panic. And then I'm like, why am I doing this to myself when I have to wake, I feel like I have to do something that's like hard to make happen, and I'm like, it's weird that I want to already take that nervous energy and then just take it up a few days every
It's
night.
like watching a horror movie. Though.
Yeah,
I mean, I
I
think
think
we
so,
talk
yeah.
about this a lot. That we think
fun.
horror is a chance to practice.
Yeah, you might.
You know,
you're
like
actually, that's really smart.
it's just like practice facing a fear and whatever. This monster on the cover of Fangoria, from Prophecy, is what is that monster? Well, that monster is something different to everyone who watches the film. It could be it could be an abusive parent. It could be cancer. It could be it's whatever scares you, and you get to confront that and walk out. Guys, thank you so much.
thank you.
was
This is so
awesome.
fun. Thank
We
you.
could have sat here all day.
literally feel
Yeah.
like we could have done this for
Same. I
3
wish we
more
blocked
hours.
out 8 hours.
Me
to
too.
talk.
Yeah.
That was really
I know,
fun.
it was really fun. Wait, did I just
Sweden. It's so cool.
sign the right stuff? I think so.
Is that Lauren?
I just.
Lauren, she's not. You just check that she
Will
signed
you
it right.
check? Because I don't know if I did. I don't know. I've got confused. Is it okay if I just take this thing off myself? Where is it? Okay. See if I gave you the right things. Thank you so much.
Next up, we are very excited for our conversation with filmmaker and screenwriter Panos Cosmatos, the visionary mind behind the arresting sci-fi film Beyond the Black Rainbow, as well as our own Mandy.
This has been Visitations. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen so that you never miss an episode. Visitations is a Shudder original podcast. Download the app or visit shudder.com to start your free 7-day trial.
Visitations was created by SpectreVision, hosted by Daniel Noah and myself, Elijah Wood. Executive produced by Daniel Noah, Josh C. Waller, Lisa Whalen, and me. Produced by Elisa Hieras. Our on-set producer and post-supervisor was Lauren Magura. Edited and mixed by Graham Resnick. Our production sound was provided by Brian Curley. Our PA is Guillermo Patricios. Our stills photographer was Tema Hankin. Original artwork by Jay Shaw. For Shudder, Owen Shiflett and Nicholas Lazo. And our music was composed by Bad Bad Not Good.